Starting out at number 10, How the West Was Won. This is an epic Western if there's ever been one. It's so epic it needed not one but three directors. It's a story of the westward expansion in the mid to late 1800s, told through the eyes of the Prescott family. If you look at the poster, you wonder to yourself how in the world they were able to get all these stars in one movie. This movie was one of the few that was shot and projected in the 3-strip Cinerama format. They use 3 separate cameras shooting simultaneously, and then they have the theater set up with 3 separate projectors that project at the same time. And if you look closely at the video, you can see the little lines where the 3 different pictures kind of line up together. If you live in the Los Angeles area, the Cinerama Dome has these 3 projectors set up, and occasionally they do have showings of this film with the 3 projectors. It's pretty cool. I've seen it a couple of times. Take a look at a segment of the theatrical trailer.
Already acclaimed and applauded the world over, in How the West Was Won, Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer and Cinerama have brought together the biggest and most distinguished all-star cast in entertainment history, characterizing the men and women who conquered the wilderness, finding a new life in this immense human saga of the American West. James Stewart is the mountain man. Henry Fonda is the plainsman. Adventurers such as these first explored the land. Then came the settlers who traveled the waterways, like the Prescott family, Carl Malden and Agnes Moorehead, and their daughters, Carol Baker and Debbie Reynolds, who left the frontier for a gayer life.
Number 9, Giant. It's an epic that tells the story of a cattle baron and his family, and it touches a lot on racism, sexism, and family tradition. It's got an unbelievable cast featuring Rock Hudson, Elizabeth Taylor, James Dean, and a very young Dennis Hopper. This is worth it just to see the 3 leads. They're just spectacular in this movie. Very, very beautiful film to watch. And interesting side note, James Dean passed away before this film was released, and a lot of his, well, not a lot, some of his dialogue had to be dubbed by another actor. And here's a short clip. Check it out.
I'm rich, baby. I'm a rich boy. Me, I'm gonna have more money than you ever thought you could have. You and all the rest of you stinking sons of Benedicts.
Leslie, you go out in the house. Take the women with you.
Jet, we're real glad you struck him. Now you go on along home.
And coming in at number 8, Pale Rider, featuring one of my all-time favorite actor-directors, Mr. Clint Eastwood. It's basically about a preacher who comes to the aid of a group of prospectors who are being terrorized by a huge mining corporation. It's another one of the Man with No Name films that Clint Eastwood made. It's not one of his better-known westerns, but interestingly enough, it's the only western that Clint Eastwood released during the 1980s. I really love this movie. I've seen it a number of times, and if you haven't seen it yet, definitely check it out. Here's a scene with Mr. Clint Eastwood being a badass as normal, and a very, very young Chris Penn. Number 7, the John Wayne classic Red River. It's the story of a hard-nosed, and some may say ruthless rancher who builds a massive herd of cattle in Texas and decides he wants to drive them from Texas to Missouri in order to get a better price for them. His tyrannical behavior leads to conflict between him and his surrogate son, played by Montgomery Clift. I don't really want to tell you too much more because it might ruin things, but definitely see this movie if you haven't seen it yet. This is a must-see for anybody who's a John Wayne fan or a fan of classic westerns. And a little bit of trivia, this was Montgomery Clift's film debut, but it actually sat on the shelf for 2 years because of a legal dispute with Howard Hughes. So the movie The Search came out before this in 1948, and then they released this movie shortly after. Here's a clip from early on in the movie that gives you a little bit of a glimpse of John Wayne's character's dark side.
Remain here on Don Diego's land. You are welcome for a night, a week.
Are you Diego?
No, senor.
Where is he?
At his home across the river, 600 kilometers out.
How far is that?
About 400 miles.
That's too much land for one man. Why, it ain't decent. Here's all this land aching to be used, never has been. I tell you, it ain't decent.
But, senor, it is for Don Diego to do as he chooses. This land is Don Diego's.
What is that river you were talking about?
El Rio Grande, but I told you
Tell
that...
Don Diego, tell him that all the land north of that river's mine. Tell him to stay off of it.
Oh, but the land is his.
Where did he get it?
Oh, many years ago by grant and patent, inscribed by the king of all the Spain.
You mean he took it away from whoever was here before? Indians, maybe.
Maybe so.
Well, I'm taking it away from him.
Others have thought as you, senor. Others have tried.
And you've always been good enough to stop him?
Amigo, it is my work.
Pretty unhealthy job. Get away, man.
Sorry for you, senor.
Number 6, Dances with Wolves. Starring and directed by Kevin Costner, and it's the story of a cavalry soldier who's sent to this remote fort on the western frontier, and when he's out there he befriends a wolf, dances with wolves, and the local Sioux tribe, and as he kind of starts getting more and more assimilated with the Sioux, and he starts to leave the white world behind and tries to find a way to save his new Native American allies. This movie won 7 Academy Awards, including Best Director and Best Picture. Definitely a must-see. And a little bit of interesting side note, 2 of the bison used in the movie were borrowed from Mr. Neil Young. I wonder if Neil Young's bison were in this amazing scene. Check it out. Number 5 on the list, The Outlaw, Josie Wales, directed and starring Clint Eastwood. It's about a Confederate soldier who takes revenge on the man who murdered his fellow soldiers who were trying to surrender. He flees to Texas to start over, but a bounty on his head threatens him and the surrogate family he's collected along the way. And an interesting side note, the original director was fired, and Clint Eastwood took over directing duties and finished the film. But the Directors Guild was kind of angry about it, so they actually created a new rule called the Eastwood Rule, stating that if a director is fired during production, that he can't be replaced by somebody that's closely involved with the project. Check out this scene that features one of Clint Eastwood's many memorable lines.
my God. It's Josie Wales. You're gonna pull those pistols or whistle Dixie.
Number 4, The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. If I made a list of underrated films, this definitely would be on it. The story is about a conflict between a rancher, played by John Wayne, a tenderfoot, played by Jimmy Stewart, and a gunfighter, played by Mr. Lee Marvin. A little bit of trivia for you here. This is the first time that John Wayne ever used the term pilgrim in a movie, but he used it 25 times when referring to Jimmy Stewart's character. Here's a scene that features all 3 actors. Having all 3 of these actors in the movie at the same time is great, but having them in the same scene is even better. Check it out, you're gonna love it.
That's my steak, Valance.
You heard him, dude. Pick it up.
No. Pilgrim, hold it. I said you, Valance. You pick it up.
3 against 1, Donovan.
My boy Pompey. The kitchen door.
I'll get it, Liberty.
I said you, Liberty. You pick it up.
What's the matter? Everybody in this country killed crazy? Here! There! There! Now! It's picked up!
Why don't you get yourself a fresh steak on me?
Number 3, Unforgiven. It's about an aging gunfighter played by Clint Eastwood who sets out to collect a bounty offered on men who disfigured a prostitute. This puts him on a collision course with other bounty hunters looking to collect on the same bounty, and a sadistic sheriff played by Gene Hackman. This movie won 4 Oscars, including Best Picture and Best Director. And an interesting side note, Gene Hackman, who plays beautifully the super evil, super sadistic sheriff, almost didn't take the movie because he thought it was way too violent. I'm so glad he changed his mind. This scene, 2 gunfighters talk about life and death. One perspective from the grizzled veteran gunfighter, and a second perspective from the new, overeager gunfighter that didn't know quite what he was getting himself into.
It don't seem real. I ain't gonna never breathe again, ever. How he's dead. And the other one, too. All on account of pulling a trigger.
It's a hell of a thing, killing a man. You take away all he's got, and all he's ever gonna have.
Yeah. Well, I guess they had it coming.
We all have it coming, kid.
And coming in at number 2, Tombstone. That's right, I said Tombstone. I love this movie. It's basically just a very stylized retelling of the gunfight at the OK Corral, set in, of course, Tombstone, Arizona. The cast includes Kurt Russell, Powers Booth, Sam Elliott, Bill Paxton, Billy Zane, a brief cameo by Charlton Heston, and Val Kilmer, who I think was robbed at the Academy Awards that year. Trivia time, the original director was fired and George P. Cosmatos was brought in to finish production. A lot of people credit Kurt Russell with saving this film by working closely with Cosmatos and helped craft this movie into the masterpiece that it is. I love this movie. Here's one of my favorite scenes with one of my favorite lines from Val Kilmer as Doc Holliday.
Well. I didn't think you had it in you.
I'm your huckleberry. Why, Johnny Ringo, you look like somebody just walked over your grave.
Fight's not with you, Holiday.
I beg to differ, sir. We started a game we never got to finish. Play for blood, remember?
I was just fooling about.
I wasn't. And this time, it's legal.
And now for the number one must-see Western of all time, The Searchers. The Searchers is arguably the best Western of all time, and it's also right up there on the list of best films of all time. And it's influenced people like George Lucas, Martin Scorsese, Steven Spielberg, and many others. And for a film that's considered one of the best of all time, it got very little love at the Oscars that year. John Wayne plays Ethan Edwards, a man who's obsessed with finding his niece, played by Natalie Wood, who was kidnapped by Comanches. His search for his niece spans several years, and over the course of the movie you're never quite sure until the very end whether his obsession was driven by his love for his niece or his hate for the Comanche. This is an epic movie that anybody who loves Western should see, and anybody who loves films should see. And it kind of shows why, if you see a movie that has John Ford directing and John Wayne starring, watch it. Check out this next sequence that shows John Ford's ability to go between epic vistas and beautiful intimate moments.
Well, why don't you say it? Beat and you know it.
No. Our turning back don't mean nothing. Not in the long run. She's alive, she's safe. For a while, they'll keep her to raise as one of their own until she's of an age to...
Do you think maybe there's a chance we still might find her?
Injun will chase a thing till he thinks he's chased it enough. Then he quits. Same way when he runs. Seems like he never learns there's such a thing as a critter who'll just keep coming on. So we'll find him in the end, I promise you. We'll find him. Just as sure as the turning of the earth. So there you go, my list of top 10 must-see Westerns. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Is there any of them that you think should have been there that it weren't? Did it make you want to watch any of these Westerns? And also remember to please like, share, subscribe. Thank you very much.